Welcome to AI First Engineering, the podcast where engineering and technology leaders share how AI is transforming software delivery, quality, and the future of engineering. Let's get into it.
Hi everyone, welcome to AI First Engineering. I'm Jon Robinson, I'm your host from TestGrid, and today we're going to be talking about something that kind of gets overlooked in discussions about AI, and that's the human element. Most of the conversation focuses on technology, automation, productivity, the fun stuff, right? But successful transformation isn't really about that. It's about people, it's about culture, it's about how leaders are really adapting to change in their organizations. So joining us today is Peter Thompson. He's an experienced technology leader who's spent years helping organizations navigate this landscape. Peter, great to have you with us.
Good to be here, John. Thanks for the invite. Really looking forward
Absolutely.
to this conversation.
So before we jump in, give us the 50,000 foot view. Who is Peter? What do you do? What's your background?
Well, look, I often get described myself as a serial tester or a serial quality engineer these days. So I've been in testing since the mid-80s. Like most people my age, we got put into testing or into some testing role by default and found that we kind of enjoyed it. So that's been my background. Started at the bottom with, through analysis, worked my way up to running major groups, COEs, everything to do with testing, but more recently, bringing into the whole quality aspect of it all. The way quality has changed since the 90s through to the 2020s is about how do you look at things from a holistic perspective. Yeah. So majority of the work has been done in financial services. However, I did test the very first BlackBerry and also the very first camera phone. So a little bit of historical background in the 2000s there.
I'm jealous. That's pretty cool.
Yes, I've worked across 3 countries, the UK, New Zealand, and now here in Australia.
Very cool. So where are you at today? What's your current role?
I'm currently, I have, I guess, 2 strings to my bow currently. I have my own consultancy company.
Awesome.
Thompson QA Consulting, Pty Ltd, for all your testing needs. And I'm also a test director for ResMed, who are a medical device company here.
Awesome.
Not just here in Australia, but in the States, Singapore, UK, many other countries around the world.
Very cool. So you've been doing this a long time, right? This is not your first rodeo.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit over that time. What have you seen from a change perspective? What typically ends up changing the slowest when it comes to QA, testing, engineering in general? Is it the tech, process, people?
I think it ends up being a little bit of everything. I mean, at the heart of it is generally the people, because process change can't be driven without people. Tech change can't be driven without people. Ultimately, people are at the heart of everything you try and do. But I think that testing has always been kind of moving on to what's the next thing. If you think about Y2K, which is where testing became more known for everybody and more careers started growing out of it. It was kind of how do people change into being that and having that testing mindset and being that test-minded, if you like. And it's really then, for me, how do you keep up? Because the tools will promise you they can do things. And I could give you numerous examples of where I've been promised stuff and it's not been delivered by a tool. And so it's not the human who doesn't change. It's a promise that's been promised, but you can't keep the technology up to speed with what the customer is looking at.
I want to follow
it's a little
that.
bit of everything to me. Yeah. Sorry, John.
No, I want to follow that thread a little bit. So would you say a lot of what you see these days is aspirational from a tooling perspective versus reality?
Look, I think there's an element of that. I think when you're being demonstrated something, especially if I go to my inbox, on LinkedIn now, I'll have 9 or 10 emails or messages from people telling me they've got the next big tool, they've got the next big thing, they've got this, they've got that. And generally, when you start talking to them, the tool is there, but I'm thinking about, will it do this? And they're thinking, well, it'll generate 1,000 test cases for me. Well, I could do that. I can use Claude, I can use ChatGPT, I can use any standard tool to do that. I want something that will be specific, that I can build on, that I can sometimes use my own large language model to support, because depending who you work for, they have their own IP, they don't necessarily want to share it, so it's all, kept within house. A whole bunch of other stuff. So, and vaporware has been a term that's been used for a long time, where companies want to grow their tool, but they sell what they're growing too fast. So that's why I think it's a little bit of people and tooling, because you get promised the tooling and it sometimes isn't delivered. But people are for an industry that is based on change. People are very reluctant to change unless you can give them a positive outcome. And a lot of change that I've instigated,
or it hurts.
Yes, and a lot of change I've instigated across the years has been a mixture of people who embrace it because they can see the vision, but people who will dig their hands in, and the 9 worst words in IT, this is the way we've always done things.
My least favorite phrase.
Yes, it comes out and gets to you. So I would say the process relies on everything else. It's the people and the tools that are the hardest.
You kind of
to change.
Yeah, no, and I think that's you see that in every organization I've ever been in. But you mentioned something specifically around AI. The large language model. You want to plug your own in. One of the things that has stood out to me is how similar this AI wave, transition, transformation era, if you will, reminds me a lot of how, especially in the testing world, how we went through the offshore phase and then the cloud phase and what went into that. Do you see similarities there as well? What does that look like?
Look, I do. But actually, the similarities I see are with us. Let's take offshoring as an example. For me, offshoring was never an issue for testing. It was an issue for everyone else who wanted you to do their testing. We've all dealt with tough stakeholders. Want to see bums on seats. Everything that are these people doing anything, or where are they all, and all of that, those kind of phrases. So offshoring to me was always about selling a message to other parts of an organisation or a group or anything else, whereas AI is about telling ourselves
that's interesting.
This is coming, and there's a lot of resistance. And of course, like I say, AI will be the best thing that's happened in testing for the last 25, 30 years, because it will support and help us do what we need to do. But we have to look at ourselves now as an industry and open our arms wide and really wrap them around it and say, right, how do we help each other?
For an organization or a function that often asks a lot of people to accept change, we are often very slow to change ourselves.
Yeah, 100%. And I think if we continue to kind of dig our heels in, then the world will pass us by. So, testing back in the 2000s, early 2000s, right, as it was becoming into this career that people could really get into, kind of sold itself as a dark art, right? No, everyone can't do this, everyone can't do that. But
you need specialty.
Exactly. Yeah, technology has moved on. People have moved on. It's how do you use that to help you? Because the mindset is still the same. Not everyone has that testing mindset or that thought about coverage or risk and things like that you need as a good tester. But if we don't embrace that there are things that can help us enhance our capabilities, then we're just falling into the same trap that everybody else did, that we were trying to sell them automation, and when we were trying to sell them,
I would just say automation's a great example. All right, the whole transition to automation was often misunderstood, misrepresented, misclassified even within our own discipline as to what its value was. Right, and it wasn't until it was way too late for a lot of people to realize, oh crap, that's just another tool. I should have been learning how to use that tool. Yeah,
exactly. And now we're just seeing a shift to progressive automation. Right? So whether we like it or not, the agile hybrid world is coming here and is here to stay, and a lot of that is how do we design our automated scripts before we have the code. And I think that's an incredible place to be in, but trying to persuade people that you could start building this stuff before you've seen the code. And even some of the tools today rely on interrogating the code in order to
what's
produce
great?
automated scripts, right?
It's 100%. And what is great about this is you've been around this game long enough to have experienced the waterfall to agile shift, right? And what was the big reason why everybody liked moving to agile is we don't need all that documentation, right? Like all those things that tell us all that detail, we don't need that. And now pendulum has swung back the other way, and all of a sudden, what's the one thing that AI needs to be successful? Context. Where's that context come from? All that documentation that you guys decided we didn't need. Turns out we actually do need that. So it has been interesting to see that shift.
Yeah, for me, because I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to methodologies and how they work and what they bring to you, and the agile mindset of less document, more speed it works in some industries, but if you're in a banking industry, it's just not feasible. It's 100%, but you're also. Agile at its heart is not about doing less documentation. Agile at its heart is the most disciplined methodology
that is
there is.
Absolutely. And the people, and this is probably side rant for a second. This is probably one of the most frustrating things about people that say they're doing agile is they're not really doing agile.
No.
Right? They're following their idea of agile and the perception of agile. But some of the best development teams I've ever seen followed it to its true nature, right? And they were incredibly successful. But it is really hard to scale, and requires a lot of discipline. Like there's just no way around that. And I think you're seeing the ramifications of that with how we're looking at the AI space today. I mean,
absolutely. And we're relying on AI in some cases to fill the gap that we created by thinking we didn't have to do anything.
Well, if you think about it, right, the thing that happened is in the shift to agile, you used to have clearly defined product owners and business analysts and people that were really well defining the acceptance criteria for what this thing is supposed to do. And as we moved further and further into the agile era, right, we started shifting that responsibility down to the testing team, right? They started filling in the acceptance criteria. And now as we're shifting into the AI world and we're kind of changing who's responsible for what, it feels like we're starting to shift that onto the AI side of things.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. We're asking Claude what our acceptance criteria should be, right? Instead of thinking about it from a business perspective. Because Claude will give you an answer. It's down to you as to whether you accept that answer or not. So
that it kind of brings up an interesting question then. So from a culture standpoint, quality used to be a team that existed, right? If AI is absorbing kind of these functions, what does that mean for the quality team, right? Or department? Does that survive? Does it change? What do you think?
Well, my view is probably more of a hot take than anything else. I think in this world of AI, the quality role is more important than it's ever been. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the change that as an industry, or part of an industry, that we have to adjust ourselves to. Because AI will give you an answer. Claude, ChatGPT, or any tool will give you an answer. You have to decide if that answer is right or not. It can't tell you if that answer is right. It can't tell you the level of risk you can accept. It can't tell you if the coverage is good enough. It can tell you, hey, here's 1,500 test cases that cover 120 requirements. Yeah. It can't tell you if there's the context behind those test cases or the context behind the information that will drive it. So that's where we have to pivot to as part of the delivery lifecycle. It's about bringing our expertise in the applications, but in the risk that we know our companies are willing to take, the coverage we know that we can accept, and we'll get there. And yes, over time, if you're building your own AI tools, a lot of companies are building their own products and chatbots and all of that stuff now. It will get you the answer you want to know, but you've got two challenges. One is accepting that the AI is correct, but as a quality group, you're also going to be tasked internally testing the AI that is produced.
Yeah.
And that means you've still got to have all those smarts, you've still got to do all of that stuff, but ultimately you've got to test something that is learning, and that's very difficult.
It is, and I think one of the interesting things that worries me about this in the long run is because you're shifting a lot of the function of what traditionally fell into the quality or QA role, right? You're shifting that on to people that don't necessarily have that background as AI takes on more and more of that. As organizations were already struggling with good quality strategy, right? Like there's lots of resources out there to tell you how to test something, right? This is how you can test this. This is how you can test that. This is the best tool for this, best tool for that. But the whys and the whens and the wheres and the whats, that feels like that's a gap that still needs to be closed.
That's 100% right, and that knowledge sits in human brains and human minds, and it will forevermore. Right? Now you can be stubborn. I mean, the offshoring always used to impact roles and people, and you'd have to work through what that is and what that meant. But at the heart of it, there would always be a reluctance for somebody to pass their knowledge on to someone else.
It was always job security.
Exactly, and you'll still have that reluctance to give AI your smarts. But the only thing is, you've got to realise that it will eventually pick it up. The whole point of a decent, proper AI tool is it's learning all the time.
And the reality is there are certain things that it's always going to be better at than human beings.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And there are certain things that it will never be as good as human beings at. And I think from that end, what do you see as the core functions that a QA person today, right? If you're a junior tester just coming into your career, right? What should you be looking at and thinking about?
I think you need to be thinking about what is my role here, because a junior tester before would be write the test cases, execute the test cases, sometimes write the automation,
button
if they're an
clickers,
engineer, all of that good stuff. Here it's about using a tool that will help you drive those three functions, but then you're becoming almost a validation of the tool that you're using. And so it's understanding that right, I've been given all this information. Do I need it all? How do I use it? And how do I execute against it? And a lot of it then becomes about how do I present. So if I was to bring to you, John, hey, I've run 1,000. I've taken your requirements. I've run 1,000 test cases. What is the so what of that? You can look me in the eye and go, well, is it enough? Well, what's my coverage? What's all of this? What's all of that?
Exactly. Tests, you can, if you're automating to a metric or you're testing to a metric, you're always in danger of being gamed, right?
Absolutely.
Even unintentionally, right? Because the metric becomes more important than the outcome.
Yeah.
And that is the biggest danger I see when people do that. So, tell me if I'm wrong. It kind of feels like testers need to go back to the core of what our job is and just exercise common sense, right? Looking at something through that lens.
Absolutely, and it's bringing that level of smarts to a mechanical tool.
Right, which will never have that. It's never going to have that level of awareness. If it does, we're all in trouble.
Yeah, exactly, and it will never have that thought process. I can remember testing some of the early AI tools where you would give it a requirement, but it would look at let's say a web form, and you'd have a field that could take 0 to 250.
Yep.
All of a sudden, I'm presented with 250 test cases that all do the same thing. So, as the human in the room, I've got to be the one who goes, actually, from a company perspective, we only see these 3 numbers, so I'll test them, and I'll test another 5 to make sure that it's not doing anything funny, and I'll present that with a risk profile that shows that we think we've done enough boundary coverage. and we'll move on. We'll move on from there. But from an AI perspective, they just see you've got 250 combinations of this field, so I'll send you 250 test cases that cover it. So and that's okay, because you can shelve 216 of them and just run 34. Right?
Yeah. And I think the big thing for me is people learning how to discern that ahead of time, right?
Yeah.
Don't create the 250 test cases, right? Start with, what do I need to satisfy this condition? What is my path of least resistance, if you will, and expand out from there.
Exactly, and I think what we'll see in terms of the future, and I am stealing this job title from my good friend Jeff Thompson, is you may not have a quality engineer anymore. You might have a quality prompt engineer, and it'll be what are the prompts you're using to drive the outcomes you require from your
absolutely
that you choose to use.
I think to me, I've talked about this in previous podcasts, but that's the role, orchestration and validation and prompt generation and having that oversight to be that brain, if you will, for these tools. That's where the roles are going in my mind. So
yes.
So let me ask you this: we're getting low on time here. Give me a spicy take. What's your, looking at the landscape, give me something that is, controversial, if you will.
Well, I'm not sure it's controversial, but and I've already alluded to it as we've been chatting. I actually don't think AI is the threat to our jobs as everyone thinks it is. Look, don't get me wrong. If you work in a call center and your job is to pick up the phone and do stuff like that, absolutely, there's a threat to your job, because the chatbot will do exactly 90% of your role. In the testing world, if you put your head in the sand and think you don't need to change, then absolutely AI will replace a lot of what you do. If you open your arms and come on in and say, "Come on in, the water's lovely." Then I don't think you'll see the job losses that people are expecting. And in this AI-driven world, I actually think the role of the quality engineer is way more important than any other role that is out there. Because if you think from a development perspective, the way AI was sold to us was it will replace all the testing. Well, actually, what can AI do better than anything else is generate code.
Absolutely.
So actually, from a development perspective, you need to have that smarts to understand what's the code you actually need from the 1,000 lines it gives you, and then how do you validate that? So you've got to have that quality mindset. It's not just about unit testing. It's about, am I getting quality here? Am I getting performance? Am I getting this? Am I getting that? From 1,000 lines of code generated by a machine. And from a tester's perspective, we need to stop thinking about our job is about writing test cases. Our job is about analyzing, reporting, and presenting to it, because there's not a company, I think, in this world that will allow an AI tool to decide the level of risk it's willing to take.
Not that I've ever come across. Certainly not in a lot of the regulated industries, right? So
absolutely.
I 100% agree with you. I think, if anything, this is very much akin to the automation movement, if you will, but maybe more practical for the vast majority of people in the QA space, right?
Yes.
This is another tool that enables you to be better at your job than you were yesterday.
Yeah.
It's learning how to use that tool is going to be the most important thing. And I do think, I know this is probably my spicy take, part of this is the calling it testing is probably not going to be adequate enough going forward, right? It is going to have to be framed through the lens of quality.
Absolutely.
Because testing is one piece of it, and that's going to be way more relevant and important as we move into this new world.
Yeah, absolutely. And quality should be at the heart of everything. And so many companies will say quality, we have to look at quality in everything we do. But ultimately, they look to the test team to prove everyone is putting quality in everything they do, right? So for me, it's and we can talk mindsets, and I sometimes love, you go into an agile training session, and It goes to one who's got a growth mindset, and everyone puts their hand up, and you kind of look around the room and go, well, if we've all got it, why are we here? Right? Isn't that the point of us coming here? It's the same with the quality mindset. Not everyone will have it, but the people who do are going to be leaned on a lot more by more senior people as well to say, hey, should we be putting this to production? And I think we've seen outages. Amazon had one a couple of months ago where they've gone AI from start to finish, and all of a sudden, they've got 600 defects in production that are impacting the way they do business. Now, companies like Amazon can cope with that. Most of the companies I've worked for would not be able to cope with it.
No, I've been at enough places to know that if something goes down, there's usually only a handful of people that can fix it. And if one of them are unavailable, best of luck to you.
Yes, absolutely.
So, Peter, this has been great. First off, tell people how they can get a hold of you. How do we find you online? How do we continue the conversation?
Well, I'm mostly on LinkedIn. So just look me up on LinkedIn, Peter Thompson.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Perfect. You can go through my company website. I haven't updated it for a while, but that's Thompson.
Hey, this is your prompt.
Yeah, Thompson QA Consultancy.com or Thompson QA Consulting.com will also find you. There's a contact me button on that. But LinkedIn, just hit me up with messages. Happy to do it. I'll also plug my podcast. If you haven't heard it, it's called Quality Over Coffee, which I do with Jeff Thompson. If you don't know who Jeff Thompson is, he is the godfather of testing. So looks after ISTQB and many, many other things, and has had some really interesting insights coming out of the Eurostar conference that he's just been to in Oslo.
Yes, very disappointed I missed it this year. It's one of my favorites.
Yes. Yeah. Well, then go and listen to our latest podcast that will be out on Monday, because he's giving some oversight into some of the stuff that's there.
Well, definitely we'll check that out. Peter, I thank you very much. Appreciate it. And we'll talk to you soon. Everyone, thanks for listening to this episode.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode, follow TestGrid for more conversations with engineering and technology leaders building the future of AI-driven software delivery. Thanks for listening to AI First Engineering.